Hello, and welcome to another MarketMuse content strategy webinar in our series. Now on its 5th year. So pumped about that. I'm Jeff Coyle, the co-founder and chief strategy officer for MarketMuse. Today's discussion is something that I preach large soapboxes about all the time. It's that your content needs to be differentiated. It's content differentiation, making your content stand out in a sea of sameness. And my guest today, I'm going to tease her a little bit before I get into it, really knows this and is a stickler for differentiating content, building original content, using the resources of your business to get the most out of differentiation, and not just copying your competitors. Before I introduce her officially, I'm going to do a little housekeeping. So, a few things. Ask us anything. Put it in the chat. If it's relevant to our discussion, I will mention it in line. If it's not, I may be able to get to it at the end of our discussion, or I may need to add it to our AMA in the Slack community that we're going to be running for 30 minutes right after the show. If you're not a member of that, we'll put a link to the Slack community, or you can go look up Content Strategy Collective Slack community online, and you'll be able to find a link to that Slack invite. Also, you will be getting this replay in the next few days. Go check it out. When you do, share it, do everything you might do. While you're at it, we've now got over 100 webinar replays in our webinar library. There's a link. You can see it in the slide, blog.marketmuse.com/webinars. And go do that. All right. All right. Now I can introduce my amazing guest today. She's the head of content at Workramp, Fara Rosenzweig. Thanks for joining us today. I'll tell you a few things. First of all, I read everything that you put on social. Super excited about having this discussion. One thing I mentioned in our discussion earlier was I said, Workramp is all about learning. It's always be learning, and you kind of live that. And one of the reasons why I mentioned that is we were talking about artificial intelligence and all the changes happening in the search engine optimization world. And you're like, it's just evidence that you should always be learning, and you should always. And I laugh because most people, when they're hearing about this, get super scared and they're like rolling their eyes and thinking, oh gosh, just another terrible thing for SEO to equal horrible generated content. You're like, no, it just makes me want to learn everything. So tell me about how you got to Workramp and everything that goes into that.
Yeah, hi Jeff, hi everyone. Thanks. I'm excited to be here. I guess my journey to Workramp has definitely been a learning journey. I started out in the content world, but traditional media. So I did broadcasting, mainly international news, some short form documentary style television programming, and then really learned the form of storytelling through video. Then let's say fast forward a few years, digital became a thing, the website, social media, all the things that are second nature to us today. And I ended up working for an organization where I came in to help really take, I guess, their video production to a different level and bring it on a digital format. So I went from the newsroom to digital video content, and then somehow managed to get into fitness wellness journalism. And that's where SEO was introduced to me. So I'd already had a handful of years about storytelling, video storytelling, and then SEO became a thing. And I had to learn how to adopt SEO into journalism and storytelling. Fast forward, I then ended up coming into the tech world, working for a few different organizations. And about last year, the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I joined the Workramp team to help build their content program. And so I've been there a little over a year, and we've been really doing some fun projects. And I'm really excited for what's going to come this year. But this past year really focused on building the content program, building that strategy. How do we make our content different, unique, and taking everything that I've learned over my career journey and bring it to fruition in our content program.
Yeah, they say you want to be a T-shaped marketer. I was joking around. You're kind of the square. You've got it all from a digital marketing perspective. You've done it all. But also just to point out, not just making videos. You won an award for one of them that many people might have heard of. Well, tell us a little bit about that one.
Yes, I received early on in my career an Emmy Award for
Emmy Award. Let's just make sure everybody
Emmy
here can
Award.
receive. She's not just making videos with her DSLR, folks. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very special moment. It was a great project about a story that has a lot of, I guess, meaning, and it was a very special moment for me early on in my career. And I knew that I chose the right career path with content storytelling because I guess I received that award and it gave me the
No, that's
confidence
cool.
to keep going.
Sorry, I made you blush a little bit. But no,
Yeah.
what it speaks to though is it's the nature of storytelling and personal stories, and the nature of what's happening now in the market is a lot of regurgitated, a lot of derivative content can be created almost like a wave. But if you're always thinking about why I'm different, why I need to be different, that's the way a traditional author might be thinking, or a traditional writer might be thinking. So you're kind of coming into this, and now hilariously enough, creating differentiated content and kind of making your content special is becoming in vogue. How have you brought that to Workramp? Because yeah, for a long time people were like, well, I need an early stage awareness piece for every topic. I need a what is, I need questions and answers, an FAQ, I need a comparison page. I mean, you go to some B2B tech companies and their comparison page doesn't even recommend their own content. It's just like, wait, where did you learn this? What were you expecting? It's like, you're not Capterra, you're not Knowledge Storm, you're not Tech Target, right? You're actually the person that makes the software. How are you bringing that to Workramp? The fact that differentiation is critical, and why is that so important for kind of our audience? Whether you're in B2B tech, whether you're publishing articles about today's soccer game, or anything in between.
Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, everyone needs to have those standard what is type articles, the glossaries, those roundups, answering those certain questions. But what sets you apart is if you can find the story within those questions. And so that's what I really lean into. I do lean into my storytelling, I guess, art form from early on in my career, where my mentors taught me how to ask the right questions to get stories, to get quotes, to make it different or more relatable. And then taking different research, finding the right sources to back up your points that you're making. And I think that's where my team, we really lean into. We begin with that and then bring in the journalism hat there. We want to be unbiased. We want to just provide the facts, and we want to be as authentic as we can. So that's our starting point, I should say, when we're trying to create those standard what is type content pieces, but we add those different elements into those pieces to make it our own. And the way we might answer that question could be different from maybe how the competition is answering it. So it's important to look at your competition, but not to answer it the same way. You don't want to plagiarize it. You want to make it your own. So I like to look at the competition just to see how they're answering it, but I also don't look at it right away. I first answer it from our truth, our source, and then we go look at the competition and making sure it's different from them. And then, we just lean into, is this our voice? Is this our style? Is it answering questions that we want answers from? So those are a few key elements that we do for the standard. What is glossary type stuff? I mean, they're very important, and that's usually the first thing I lean into when building out a program. But you take that storytelling element and take your own voice and mix that into answering those questions. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
that's the beginning of how you start to stand out from everyone else.
I love that. And so I used to be in charge of optimization and content for a site called whatis.com. Many of you may know that one. And the editor, who was kind of way ahead of her time, been doing this for a long time, always said, I have a rubric for my definitions, and they're always going to be differentiated. Mm-hmm. And I know when I'm looking at somebody else's, that whether they even have one or not is critical.
Yeah.
So it's to know your competitor. It's to know whether they don't even have that club in their bag. They don't have that ability to go to that next level, or they're doing something derivative. Like, those are all extremely valuable components. And John, great question. When you say the competition answers it, right? From your perspective, Fara, what is it in that situation?
Meaning, what is that? What are they
looking for? Yeah, what are you looking for in that competitor? When you said answers it, the obvious answer to that is answers the question. All right, that you're going for, right? But what else do you consider?
So I definitely look at, are they answering the question? What other questions are they bringing into the mix? So you're going to have, for example, there's probably a piece out there on the web that is called, what is content differentiation? Like, there's going to be something out there. That's a mouthful. Say that 10 times fast. But what I would look into, if I search that to see what competitions are writing about, they're obviously going to answer that first sentence, or that first question, excuse me. What other questions are they answering? What evidence are they providing to their answer? And then, are they bringing in other experts to the mix? Mm-hmm. Or are they just literally getting the information that they searched from a Google search? Yep. So that's what I really look for at first. Yeah. I mean, we can go.
I think that really answers the question well, and it's about I think the most important takeaway probably in this whole thing, you can leave now, just kidding, is that find the story in those questions, right? And know what a story is, right? And because as you're learning about something, you are in a reading journey, you're in an information journey, you're in a buying journey. What's the story of someone going? When does this question appear in that journey? Is it that first one, or is it in the middle? What's the change that somebody's going through? I love it's an SEO tactic too. It's that, what are the next 5 questions? Answer them now. Right. That's a Schwartz tactic from years ago. But those are the things to be thinking about. So answering the question, how do they answer? Is it derivative? Is it providing unique insight? Is it providing the unique insight of their publication? Right. Was it a guest post? Those are the things you need to be thinking about when you get into it. Great question, John. That was super not a tangent. I love it. So the other thing is, so identifying areas of opportunity for differentiation for your niche. So you mentioned kind of analyzing what's going on with direct competitors. Do you ever look at maybe publisher competitors, aggregator competitors, adjacent partners? How do you do that, and what are you looking for?
I look at all of the above. It's really important to know what's out there, so that you're not just providing the same information that other people are providing, whether it's a B2B competitor or publication, or just some sort of influencer who has a blog and social media presence. So it is really important to look at all of that, and also take a step back. Your SEO competition, your content competition can be different than your organization's competition. So it's really important that everyone looks at the big picture and not just the organization competition, or not just your SEO competition. So that's, yes, step 1, look at that. And then I think also go back to what we learned in elementary school, write your outline, bullet point things, and kind of, this is what I do. I outline, I bullet point, and I put my knowledge into it from just the research that I know by being in that industry. And then I'll go and do my due diligence, fact checking, finding different people to interview, that type of stuff. But always look big scope first.
I was listening to a friend of mine talk. Is we were at like a kind of a dinner type, and he's a SEO content person. He's like, I'm almost treating my generated content like a bad film noir script, right? It's like it's publishing a little block, and it's like my take on the block, publishing, and I'm like, well, that's not that's an interesting style, but it is about finding the story in the block, in the questions, right? So it's you're differentiating based on, if you don't look at the publisher's probably going to be looking at you, and they're going to eat your lunch. I mean, that's just the reality, right? If you have a dot dash publishing against you, or dot dash Meredith, if you have a major publication, a major periodical, who moves faster than you? It depends on the dynamic, but or a tech target, where I spent a lot of time, how fast are they moving? How much are they publishing on this? Did they get lucky with one piece on this topic?
Right.
And it's not really a focus. By the way, that's worth the price of this show if you find that, because they're
Yeah.
not likely to be looking at, maybe it's learning management software, system software, right? And they only want one article about it 2 years ago. They just happen to be in the top 10 because they're so powerful. Well, you can chop that tree down, because they're not going to come back to that. So you got to look at that, and that's going to allow you to differentiate and look for opportunities in the niche. So how do you pardon me, how do you create high quality content? Once you go there, you talked about the outline, and you talked about your personal take on it, and those types of things. How do you get, first of all, how do you evangelize for that internally? Hey, everything we do needs to be special. And then how do you actually execute on that if it's not just you writing everything?
Right. So I'm very fortunate at Workramp. We have so many subject matter experts internally that I can leverage our own team. So I'm going to sources that have years of experience, and I can pick their brain. They can give me their lessons that they've learned, which is unique already, right? Everyone is different. Their journey is different. No one wears the same shoes. So I'm going to our internal subject matter experts, and they're giving me their lessons that they've learned. And then they're also part of the Workramp team. So they already know what our voice and style is. They know just what our core values and how we want to talk and stuff. So it's already, when we're talking about us, when we're trying to find the story in a certain topic, it's unique to us already, because it's someone representing our organization, and they're giving us their I guess life lessons from the topic. So that's I guess I'm very fortunate for that. We have that. Not every organization are you able to leverage that, but if you really do dig into your organization, I'm sure you will find at least a handful of people who are subject matter experts in that field that you're writing about, or that topic that you're writing about. And that's already going to differentiate you than what's out there on the web.
Nothing's better than recorded interviews with subject matter experts internally, people that can't write, or they won't write, not because they don't want to, it's just not part of their thing. That's where you get the real power. I mean, and if you can turn that into gold, I mean, that's a journalist's methodology. But it's find the people in your organization, find the people who you have access to, that the things that they say are things that nobody else can say. I mean, that's your blue ocean. I mean, that's a beautiful process. I love that. And how do you, so a bit of a joke that I also heard about recent process changes, because we're in 2023, and everybody wants to talk about AI. They think it's a magic wand, and it's going to poof, and then I don't have to do anything. Was that 2023 is the year of uniqueification, right? You're not optimizing content, you're uniquifying it, right? So how do you think about optimization, and kind of pair optimization with differentiation, like to have it have an impact, and make people want to optimize content? I think what we're in the world of is right now is people believing that they're going to beat the dragon with volume.
Right. But that's not always the case. And AI, it's really interesting. We're in such an exciting time right now, seeing this technology just evolve in front of us. So it's really important for everyone to watch it and learn how to leverage it. But however, we still are in this Google search world, and we still need to know how to optimize, understand Google's algorithm changes. And if you followed it, you do know that they made a change where they are, I guess, awarding, maybe that's not the right term, but awarding more content that is authentic. That is, it's not just SEO fluff. It's, taking those common search words or search terms, putting it into an informative educational piece that is going to provide benefits to the reader. So when you think about our philosophy is when we think about optimization, of course, we're going to follow some of the best practices for SEO because, hey, that's been around for a long time and it's not going away anytime soon. What is going to help us differentiate from the optimization is being our authentic voice, answering questions, again, from our subject matter experts, and just being that thought leader in our space. So we really lean heavily in not taking risks, I guess is the right way to say it. Like, it might not be the common answer that you're finding on every other website, but we're taking the risk, we're providing facts, and we're providing real time or real life events in our storytelling. So I think that is a really key thing for people to lean into and not steer away from, optimization. I mean, it's there for a reason. So definitely there's an art form to mix it into your storytelling. And then it will be interesting to see how AI plays out. There is a way to leverage it for teams today, but it's not going to be providing you with like the gold mine of content right now. It could eventually, but it's a good way starting point, I guess, if you're stuck. But I'm going to just go back and say, put your thinking cap on, ask questions like the who, what, why, when, where, how questions to different people, and then take your research and put it into a nice story. It's probably easier said than done, but it's, if you look at articles or books that you enjoy reading, it's not just high level fluff. It's really thought provoking information that has facts in there. It has stats, it has visuals, it has quotes, and real life examples that readers will be engaged with and related and can relate with.
Yeah, I think that as you got into that, it goes back to, and I wanted to ask you about what your definition of the sea of sameness is, right? And because I think that it's important to have that level set, but it's when you're optimizing content, is this optimized, and can I make it more optimized by introducing progressions, by being differentiated, so that when they're done reading, they don't fall off a cliff. There's a next thing for them to do, right? And a lot of times, if you see stuff that's clearly written by outsourced writers, they don't know that this is part of an anthology. This is part of a story. It's just an article and it's plopped in, and it could be on any old site. I think there's a social media meme that it says, if you think your brand's very powerful, take the logo off, take the header off, and remove all the mentions of the brand, and see if you could figure out it was your site. Right.
So good. So true.
And you see, and you're like, oh man, and that's where you get into it and say, did the article actually drive them to the next step that I want them to take, whether it's a learning journey or a buying journey. I have another awesome question from Jessica, and it dovetails here before we get into the question about sameness. It's, what types of pieces do you prioritize in your production cycle? Do you balance in-depth journalistic style pieces? I'm going to have a Jeff question on top of that, by the way, but with shorter, quicker win blog posts, explainers, short posts, do you lean more into one or another? And my Jeff codicil there would be, what is a journalist type piece to you? Because to me, it's something different. So I'd be interested in your take on that. So
Yeah, that's a really good question. Everyone's take is slightly skewed. To answer first, how do you balance it, or what do you prioritize? We balance it out. So we have 3 different audiences that we're trying to talk to, while we're balancing our thought leadership content versus our SEO first content versus the content that's going to answer customer questions. And so we have our schedule of, we produce a minimum of 3 pieces a week. So that's how we balance it out. It's like Mondays are dedicated to this type of piece, Wednesdays this type of piece, Friday this type of piece. If we need to add in other content, we have Tuesdays and Thursdays to add into the mix if we need to, but we dedicate 1 to each audience per week. And then we say, okay, this is our SEO piece on this day. This day is going to be our thought leadership, and this is going to maybe be another SEO piece. And every Monday I run an editorial meeting. So that's when we talk about what trends we're reading. So I actually put on the calendar Thursday, like end of day, maybe about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I dedicate about an hour to 90 minutes for our team to go read what's trending, take a webinar, do something, and it's every Thursday. And that's our time to see what's going on in the world, whether it's for our industry or in content. We then discuss that Monday. We dedicate about 10 minutes in our editorial meeting, and we say, what type of content do we need to publish that's, within this area that we just learned about? And then we discuss on our calendar, is this, we work like a week or 2 out. So we'll discuss every Monday, is this the right piece that we need to post? Is this timely? Is it not timely anymore? Sometimes we have to scrap content because by the time it goes through our publishing process, it's outdated. Now, I like to save work. So we have like a folder called pause or hold, but I do look at how can we repurpose that content for future content. So this is a very long-winded answer to the question, how do we balance it? But that's how we really look at it. We have our publishing days. We meet every Monday to discuss, is this aligned with what we're trying to achieve? We look at our OKRs, our business OKRs, and then our team OKRs, double checking, is this the right piece of content that's going to help us with our goals? So those are a few things that we do. And then to answer your question, how do we take that journalistic approach, and how do we make it, our content, I guess, different with that journalism hat? It's, back in the day, journalism was unbiased. It was very factual, and it was questions diving deeper and deeper. It's kind of like we're the annoying 3-year-old kid asking why. And so that's what we try to do with our content, is we take that approach. But I am a stickler. My writers know this. I am a stickler. I'm not a clickbaity type person, because I don't want to give anyone the wrong information in a headline versus your like teaser and then the content itself. So I'm really big on, hey, let's give them in our headline something, what's optimized, but then what's also truthful. We don't want to ruin the relationship by giving something false only for clickbait. So from a journalistic standpoint, we want to build trust. We want to give the accurate information. And then I'm a stickler for intros. I hate the boring, let's say, just restating the question from the title. Because if you read that, you're gonna be like, okay, I know the answer already. How is this keeping me hooked? So I work with the writers on what's our hook? What is gonna be engaging? What's the aha moment that we can capture someone right away and keep them going, keep them reading our content? And yes, and then you can add more links, you can add video, you can add images. You're providing them this experience online by building that trust, giving them the answers to that obnoxious 3-year-old why. And eventually, you're going to have them, you want them to take an action, but you're not going to have them take that action right away. You're building that trust with them. And that is a big thing from what I learned in journalism years ago is, you want to build the relationship and trust with your audience and not give them false information, and not be boring like everyone else is doing. So those are a few things that I do.
Keep it coming. That's beautiful.
And I also am a stickler with my writers. So I don't let my writers just go out and write once we bring them on. I educate them. I show them what our style guide is, what our voices are. If you have to choose between 3 different words, our persona for our content would choose this type of word. I educate them on our product. So they are well-known, well-versed, somewhat of a subject matter expert in our product. And I provide them also with different materials, different reports from the industry in our space. So they're constantly in the know also. So those are some really important key elements that I don't necessarily know if all content programs dedicate that time to, because there's so much into, we need to crank out the content. And I rather provide quality content because readers nowadays are very savvy. They can see through the fluff. So they want, if they're going to spend 5 minutes reading something, they're going to want something of high quality and informative information.
I read I forget what company it was, but you spend your first month there spending half of your time on the customer support team, with the customer support team, no matter what job you have. So that's another way, you're like advocating, you're going to be empathetic. You have to learn this product. I love it. I'll unpack a few things and see if it validates. And this is something that is near and dear to my heart. It's every article that we write needs to have a clear goal. That goal might be cluster support. It might be we haven't written enough on this audience. It does, it has to have a goal, right? It has to have it is part of this other content, or is it a whole new wing of the museum, right? And then we have to be able to answer why now, right? Why was this prioritized? I love the way that you got to that. And I love also, it's very important that, is this a instant source of repurposing opportunity? And when will we repurpose it? Is it based on a trigger, like it outperforms? Is it based on a goal time frame? Always have that. This is a candidate for repurposing if it is successful. If it is a failure, and which angles? I love that you said, but those are all things, because you've got to know your efficiency rate. We published 10 articles and one of them's successful on average. Well, guess what? That's not very good. That's about average. Or do we expect this to be a big home run? Document it first, or else don't lie later. I hate when people play results. They play results. Oh yeah, these are our big winners, right? Oh yeah, you expected that? No.
Yeah.
You're playing results. So I love that. I said, one of the things that I added, and I'm going to change my process. I'm going to add this, is after you read the article, you should have a list of things. And one of them should be, does this build trust with our company? I've never thought to myself that during the editing process, you should have to answer that question. It should say, did this help build trust with our company? Or would I trust this company less? That's a beautiful thing to have, part of that editing process. I love it. So thinking about the sameness, right?
Yes.
Another question, by the way, is there another piece on the web that delivers equivalent value to this? And it's not differentiated. That's one that I like. So speaking to the sea of sameness, how do you approach cluster support content, or content that historically wasn't inspired, or it seems too simple how do you get people to think differently when you got a page that's, it kind of seems cut and dry. What's the capital of North Dakota? It's
Yeah.
Bismarck. But how do you make that page better, right? How do you
Yeah.
do that? How do you approach that process? Because cluster support content is the most misunderstood content in all the world. And I need your take on this because I wrote this piece because I have to have it. It has to be there because it's going to make my pillar content perform, right? It is not going to be a performer. It is not going to get direct traffic, but I have to have it. This is a big, big mistake people make is they don't believe unless it has traffic, it's not valuable. We'll even delete it in an audit, right? So how
Don't
do
do
you
it.
get, yeah, do not do it. You don't get it. How do you build, how do you know, advocate for cluster support? How do you advocate that that's actually a component of what makes us special? How do you advocate for those things? And what are some other things that you've learned from doing this?
Yeah, I think clustering is really important. My take on clustering, the way I think of it and how it helped me with storytelling is I look at clustering as different chapters of your story. So, you have, if you look at a book, the theme usually throughout a book is it's the same in every chapter, but there's a different story going into detail of something. So when you're looking at clustering, I look at it the same way. You have your pillar page that you want, you want people to go to. That's what you want to rank for in the SEO term or in SEO world. But you can make that pillar page different. First of all, you go back to how do you make, I forget what city you had mentioned, but Bismarck. How do you make a pillar page of Bismarck different from all the other tourism sites? Well, you take a different spin on it. What makes it unique? What are your top favorite parks or this, that? Like you make it your own from the pillar page. And then all these clusters are just different chapters of it. So that's, I think I shared this analogy with you when we were chatting earlier, but you look at, I always talk to people about my fork analogy. Everyone will look at a fork and they're like, it's a metal fork. Okay, so sure, you could have a pillar page about a metal fork, but your clusters are going to be like, will branch out. You can dig deeper. The type of material, who made it, is there some sort of art form to making it, the different type of metals that make it. So you really can go down this rabbit hole. It's not just a metal fork. There's really like maybe some sort of history to it that has some cultural heritage meaning, so it's when I'm going on a little tangent here about dialing it back in, I look at clusters as just an extension of your pillar page, but those are your chapters. Those are the elements that allow you to dig deeper into your storytelling and really build that relationship with your audience. So they're going to want, you build that pillar page that's very compelling, and you have these other clusters or chapters, as we call it, that they're going to be the page turners. They're going to want to keep going down and learning more about that topic. And it's going to be, go down that rabbit hole so you can make that cluster different than what other people might be talking about. Yeah. It's a long-winded answer there.
Well, I mean, you have a fork example. I mentioned him a lot, but Matthew Dix is one of my favorite storytellers, and he has a spoon example. So
Okay.
you're not very
It's
far
very
off. It's not just, if you want to look that up, I believe it's not just an abandoned spoon would be the search term you want to look for.
Yeah.
But no, that's a thing. It's to say, what does it mean to you? How is this going to change you? The fact that you're answering this question, what's special about it? So I love that, getting into it. A lot of people don't take this lens on their content, right? They look at it, it's a support section of our site. So it can just be, what's the OF protocol? OF protocol is this protocol that was made in 1947. Right. If you get into the habit of examining the question, asking these questions about your pages, and using them to your advantage, using them to your company's advantage. One thing I'll mention is, here's a great question from Elizabeth. Do you recommend sticking to or shying away from the content marketing standard formula? And that would be lead, headers, 1, 2, 3, and a conclusion, right? Yes, that's lead, headers, 1, 2, 3, and a conclusion. I believe that would be the you could even, bury that lead to make it a little bit more exciting if you want, right,
Yeah.
Elizabeth? No, what is your take on those types of approaches?
So I don't like to reinvent the wheel. Things have been done for a reason. So I definitely do lean into the best practices. You have your title, you have your different headers. So we do leverage that, but it's not for every type of content piece. Again, when we're looking at our outlines, we look at our topics and we make outlines and we go, does this piece make sense to follow the standard best practice, or does it make more sense to take a different approach and treat it more as like an essay style, and add more visual elements to it? So again, it's a piece by piece approach. We've kind of created a system, so we've been able to fast track that a little bit and not take so much time to analyze things. But starting out, we had to definitely look at that. Does it make sense to take this approach, or should we try something different? So it's a case by case situation for my team.
My mute button got stuck. All right, so I've got a couple other questions that have been asked, but we're gonna get to those. But just getting back onto kind of some of the topic about differentiation. A question that I had for you, because you're in kind of looking at B2B tech, learning management systems, and by the way, that would be if you're looking for a certification program for your site, that would be anything you would want people to learn, whether it's classroom based, or whether it's you're providing that value, anything where somebody would not learn something and then they're learning, no matter what the medium is. Most popular, there are corporate, but also classroom based. So just if you're not familiar with Workramp, go check it out. When you're doing that, though, this is why I'm asking the question in that way. And I even gave you a sort of plug, which I never do. But how-to content, right?
Yes.
Actual process step content, getting something done. There's a lot of different methodologies for that, right? It's, the wiki how, step picture.
Yep.
Does it build trust? Kind of no, but it will tell you which way a screw will go, left or right, but it's not going to do much else, right? All the way to making it has to be a real life example,
Right.
shown that I drive the how to. Where do you land there, given that you are providing, and this is super meta, you're providing learning management software? How do you teach with your content?
Yeah. So I'm going to take a step back. We leverage Gong. And I'm not sure if a lot of content writers, marketers leverage Gong, but we sit in and listen to our customer calls. We sit in and listen to prospect calls. That allows us to understand how we want to answer our how-to articles, because they're asking those questions, and then we listen to our customer success team or sales team answer those questions. So it's kind of like one of our tools, I guess, like a secret sauce of ours to help us educate people in our how-to articles, because we're understanding the pain point from the customer, and then I guess like our little insight, we know how to answer that how-to for our prospects. So that said, some content pieces, they just want to get the answer right away, and it's as simple as putting a few different graphics together. But instead of the like standard wiki, step 1 here, step 2 here, we're going to put a little bit more oomph into it, like the value of doing it this way. And there might be more than one way to do something. So we might articulate, hey, you could do this, 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 but you'll save time and you'll save money if you do it this way. So that's one of the ways how we answer our how-to. And then there's the how-to, from an SEO standpoint, where you're just going to put in all the copy, all the things, answer all the how questions in there. And that's another way that we take that approach. However, we'll add in video elements, like video clips, to answer some of those. We might add in GIFs. We might add in different multimedia assets to make that how-to more engageable. interactive content is an area that I explore for how-to content, because you can click on something and gamify it. And then that's going to stand out to your audience and give them the answers that they're looking for, provide the value and benefits for whatever challenge that they're having. But we're taking, I guess, the base of how we want to answer it from our gong calls, because we now know what our customers are asking, and we now know from those calls what resonates with them. And so we bring that element into our how-to pieces.
I love that. That's great. So I think that goes into the who's this for, right? And where are they in the buyer journey? Potentially. So what do you do in the situation? And this might be a tough question. So, I'm bringing it. What do you do? So I find this happens a lot I work with lots of B2B technology software companies and publishers, right? Publishers get it wrong one direction. B2B tech companies get it wrong the other direction. So we'll see where you get it. Is they're often, if they use customer information, their how-tos tend to skew post-purchase troubleshooting and implementation. And they have a hard time extracting them up the buyer journey. If they're a publisher and they're approaching the same how-to, they tend to skew awareness. And then they're having to drag them down the funnel into a world they don't understand because they don't have a product, right? So how do you balance that? How do you create a topic cluster? Okay, first of all, who's it for? At what stage are they? What skill? How do you build that? And how do you stop yourself from the trap of being a support site for your own product?
Yeah, so I have to say, at a different organization, I fell in that trap. But what we do at Workramp is, hey, we have the support how-to articles in a different area on our site, and that is specific for customers. Now, that doesn't mean we can't take some of those pieces and give them like a little teaser into that top of funnel, the awareness stage of how-to content. But we're not gonna scare people away with that support how-to article. Again, to your point, you have to think, who is this for? Most of the content that we're creating is all for top of funnel, or top, middle, or bottom funnel. They haven't purchased the product yet, so we can give them a snippet of stuff, but they don't understand the product. So why are we going to scare them away? So really, we leverage more of that from the publisher standpoint, but we bring in a little element of that support without giving them the whole shebang. We just do like a little teaser there, and then we say, hey, to learn more, contact this person. Maybe drive them to a webinar or another type of content piece, whatever it is. But again, every Monday we ask the question, what's the goal of this? Who is this for? Is this really hitting our overall company goal?
Nice. I love that. I love making someone identify as where they exist and where they are as part of this journey. Where are they in this journey? Because what you find in a lot of places is the wrong people are landing on the wrong pages and nobody even knows. Right? And that's critical. So why would someone want to have this intent, and in what world are they? So like, it's like that, show them that I'm like, why would somebody want to know, the best way to use video for sales, right? What are the stories that might tell what their journey is? Where are they? Like, are they a BDR just starting out in their first job? Is it a seasoned sales rep who So it's not just, personas aren't just so you can have pictures on the wall. It's so that you can actually differentiate. Because I can write 4 posts about that are really good just by thinking of the different stories that they're part of. Think of the person you're writing for as that. What is the what's the whole book that they'd write of their personal story, and how are you speaking to it? It's not just BS. You can really, really make an impact here. And guess what? Your competitors likely aren't doing it this way. They likely have the most boring, obvious version of this, if it's not something that's near and dear. And you really love it when your competitors have low quality support content in the SERPs.
Yes.
Great. It's like your competitors have PDFs in the SERPs. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
love that. Search engine results pages, by the way. Sorry for the jargon. Okay, so now guest posts, third party content contributions. How do you do this without completely screwing everything up?
Their guest posts are an art form in itself. So we vet every submission that we get for a guest post, and we ask the question, is this for our audience? You're going to get a lot of people reaching out. Hey, I'm a freelance digital writer. I've worked for XYZ, and I bring X amount of years of writing experience. That's great, but you might not know our space. So what type of, I want to know how knowledgeable you are in the space so that the content you're writing is not fluff. It actually makes sense. You understand what you're writing. So from like a guest post, I don't necessarily look at the pitches that are coming from an organization to get that SEO domain authority. I'm looking at, are you well versed? Are you an author in the space? Are you an influencer in the space? How many years have you worked in the space? Because that's the information that's going to make your content different from your competition's content if they're leveraging guest posts. Another way we leverage guest posts is, again, our internal team. We have some fantastic subject matter experts with years of experience, and they look at writing as a creative outlet. So we're going to leverage them. They might not be, the best writer in the world, but we're going to help them get there. We're going to ask them. We'll give them some questions to kind of navigate the way we're trying to share information, and we'll clean it up. We might do a video interview or something to just make them feel comfortable, get the facts and stuff, and really leverage them for those type of guest posts too. So it's not, we don't steer away from it, but we're very particular about who we welcome for guest posts, because we just don't want anyone writing on our site. Like, we have a brand to protect. And so as content marketers and strategists, it's your job to police your brand. You want to make sure that you're providing authentic information to your audience, build that trust, build that relationship. So you have to also police who's going to be contributing to your blog in that way.
Yep. I always like this litmus test. It's if this page were to all of a sudden skyrocket and become 90% of our site's traffic, how would we feel?
Yeah. Is that going to represent your brand?
Right. And, so what are the steps you would need to take if this post were to get that? And if you're afraid of it, or maybe, oh gosh, if that were to happen, you'd have to go do a background check on this person, or it's not about what you care about. It was about, kitty cats. Oh gosh, we're in trouble, right? Getting all this traffic. And you think that's far-fetched? No. All the time, folks. I see it all the time where their content efficiencies were ruined. Content efficiency. How much content did you create versus how much content are successful? Or example I was looking at yesterday, 2 blog posts that were guest posts were getting 15% of the site's traffic, both by a guest post editor on topics completely separate from what the company did, and just awful. Like I can't even. I won't get it. I don't want to say who it is in case they're on this call, but yeah, super bad. And so I love the SME concept. I love vetting it. I love thinking about what would happen if this was the front and center. All right, last question before we hop into getting how can people get told you and stuff. Okay, Elizabeth again. Thank you, Elizabeth. 2 awesome questions. What are your thoughts on metaphors in intros? Oh, getting into the intro thing. Are they interesting way to open a B2B article? Or do they feel more like non sequitur?
So again, okay, so metaphors, I was trained years ago, don't use them. it's a lazy way to capture your audience. However, I was also taught metaphors have a place and they can be used in some instances. So I guess we do leverage them, but not all the time. We'll use them sporadically in our intros, or we'll use it sporadically in our email marketing copy. But that's one thing, I guess it stuck with me. The person who trained me on this, it stuck with me. The similes, metaphors, and asking questions as your lead is a no-go. So I really try to stay away from that stuff.
I've heard recently action over metaphor is far superior, but also it comes from, I think lazy is a great way to describe it. Not that like if you do it, you're lazy, but it is lazy. It's kind of like the storytelling, giving the end at the beginning is ultra dumb and lazy, by the way. Lots of people do it. And also people believe that to clickbait, they need to tell the answer. Well, if I read an article and it's like how Yuck Yuck got, won the gold medal, I know they won the gold medal.
Yeah. What's going to keep them on the page? What's going to keep them going down, reading more and more?
That better be a really great, progression. I know they won the gold medal. So that's when it becomes hard, though, when you're trying to draw attention to something based on it having a real ROI benefit without necessarily, that's when it gets hard to answer the metaphor questions. A lot of people use metaphors as a crutch when they don't want to give away the ending. So there's a lot of things to be thinking about. So I don't think it's always the worst thing in the world, but you got to have a really good reason for it. That's my take. Elizabeth, awesome questions. All right, cool. We are getting close. If you do not know what to write next, and you don't know your top 5 articles that you should write that are going to have the biggest, most meaningful impact on your business, I do, because I have software that tells me it, right? And it really, really works. Not just because Fara says so, not just because I said so, it really does. So if you want to know what the next 5 articles you should update should be, book a demo, and you might even talk to me and I'll tell you the 5, and you're like, I don't want to update those 5. And I'll say, you should update those 5 because I have data that tells you why. And then I'll say, why this, why now? It's because it's going to increase traffic 20%. Or if you want to go check out Workramp Learning Management, if you don't have a certification program for your site, if you don't have learning management in place, go check out Workramp. How can people get a hold of you? You're very prolific on LinkedIn. Any other social media?
No, LinkedIn is my social media hub. I kind of steer clear of everything else nowadays. So that's where you can find me. And I talk about all the things.
You gotta follow her on LinkedIn. Great posts. So consistent. I commonly reference your stuff in our internal Slack channel. So I'm so happy we got to have this discussion. There have been some additional questions. Some of them are really specific, so we didn't talk about them, like about somebody's site and specific use cases. A few more about AI, and who you are. Asked a bunch of AI questions to everything. There's actually an AI question that was really good. I just didn't get to it. And I also got a bunch of them that are people that come to these webinars and ask everybody how they're going to spam Google and all this stuff. So we'll save those for the Slack channel. Go check that out. Content Strategy Collective Slack channel. If you just search that in Google, you'll probably find the link to go get your invite. Or if you can't, shoot me an email, jeff@marketmuse.com, or a Twitter DM. I just got one from somebody who just followed me and sent me a DM for the Slack channel link. So go check that out. Or look me up, Jeffrey_Coyle on Twitter. LinkedIn, I post not as consistently as Fara, but I do post a lot. I'm just, some of them aren't good. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll give you the last word.
This was awesome. Thank you so much. I enjoyed chatting with you. And I hope everyone, takes a step back when creating their content and asks questions to make theirs different from what's out there. And definitely leverage MarketMuse. Like, it's been a game changer for my team for sure. So leverage that, use data to help you make some of your decisions too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.